I'm so sorry about
It's okay.
that. It's funny because I always talk about how I love software, but I also hate software because the more software I use, the better I get, the more problems I always have. But that's just the nature of tech, I guess. Solar Lily, thank you so much for talking. Obviously, small podcast. We just talk about solar and the industry, but mainly trying to create value for reps and other people that are in this industry and highlight some of the good people because there's a lot of crappy people in this industry as well. So thank you so much. For anyone who's watching or listening that isn't familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about kind of yourself and your journey and how you got into where you are now in solar?
Sure. My name is Lily Valdez. I'm known as Solar Lily in the industry. I've been in January, it's going to be 4 years. And I started in the home improvement space. Actually, I sold windows, energy efficient roofs, HVAC, everything you can imagine that is energy efficient, solar being one of them. And then I kind of fell in love with solar. And then I worked, for bigger companies like Sunrun, Momentum, and also smaller companies. And then I built a team at Power. And I'm now doing kind of going back to where I started with my own company, Sunlily Energy, where I will also be doing home improvements as well as like windows, energy efficient, everything for the home so that people don't have to pull out several loans to do the same thing.
Yeah, I do, and I love. We'll talk about uh, your experience with power. That's always a topic that people love to talk about. But I like your when you told me your business name, it's Sun Lily, or even I think in my head I was thinking Solar Lily. Like no matter what, it's cool that your name is so brandable in a way. It's pretty cool. I like it because that sounds like a company or a person that you would expect to be huge, and it could work on two different levels where it's you, but at the same time you can do it in a way where reps that are representing you can represent the brand and not necessarily you. Because like I felt like with my name, like Kyle Thumb, if I ever hired someone to work for Kyle Thumb or Thumb Productions or Thumb Marketing or whatever, I don't know, it just feels weird. It feels different. But Lily, I like it because it sounds like it could be a legitimate company name, and it just happens to also be your name. But that's cool.
Yeah, many people ask me, why don't you just name it Solar Lily? It sounds good. And I'm like, no, because I want to have my reps be able to represent it as well. But the branding is so the logo is just a little sun with a like little lily underneath. And I didn't name it Sun Lily Solar because I want to provide other services, which is anything that's eco-friendly. So like we'll do windows, roof, insulation, HVAC. So I didn't want to close it off. And then if, it's just more open, but it's still using the brand that I built myself. So it just happened to be that it worked that way.
Yeah, it's I mean it's cool. I think that's what a lot of people number one, I think a lot of people overthink like branding and like business name, and I mean I'm sure we all know people that like before they even go and sell a deal, they are worried about filing that LLC and hiring their tax guy, and they focus on all those details and they don't focus more on the business as much. But it is something to think about when you do get to that point where you're growing and you're hiring people and these people are associated with you, whether they're working for you directly or not, and providing a brand that they are comfortable associating themselves with, or helping them with their own brand. And that's where it can get confusing. And we actually do see a lot of that with companies like Power, where there's people that are in Power that are 100% with the Power, drinking the Power Kool-Aid. They love Power. They brand themselves as Power. And there's other people that you find out later they use Power, but they're using their own kind of branding and stuff like that. So we'll just touch on it real quick. I don't want to talk too much about Power. It's always such a divisive topic, unfortunately. But what drew you to Power initially, and what lessons did you kind of take with you and you're using to build your own business, and how you're kind of moving forward in the solar industry without Power?
So I'm still with Power. I'll make that clear because I have a team there,
I am
and
too. Yeah, I don't.
yeah, totally. But what I did learn there is like I read a really good book about how you work in network marketing and everything like that, and it helped me to not invest too much time. So one of the things I learned at Power is that a lot of people will come for it because of the model. A lot of people will come to it because they just want to make money quick. They hear all these great stories. But I one thing that I do emphasize and I tell people is don't compare your day one to someone's day 1,000 because it's not going to be the same. And I find that a lot of people come and they want that instant success and they give up. And everyone's talking about, oh, mentors make all this money. You guys take, we waste a lot of time too on people that are not serious that come and go like quicker and they're in another company, another company. So I learned at there that my time is just as valuable as their 50%, if that makes sense. Because I'm also getting mentored and people are making money off of me, and I'm okay with that. I don't go blast them on social media and say, oh, I sold this commercial deal for this guy and he's making this much on me, because I know that's the cost of doing business and I'm cutting years out of my like learning curve. So the same thing, I've learned to say no. Sometimes people ask me to mentor and I say no because I know it's going to be a problem. I learned to set guidelines and to literally pick who I want to help that's going to reciprocate it back, because we've all been there, like someone you spend all this time with for 2 months. They're like, I want to form the LLC. I want to advertise this. And I'm like, go get leads. Leads first. We'll take that little by little. I'll help you with that. But let's get you a pipeline. So I've learned to work with people that are good at building pipelines, that are all about it and that follow instructions.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest. I think anyone who's ever managed sales reps knows, like, the best thing you can find is just someone who, number one, does what they say they're going to do. They're reliable, but they're also consistent. And that's like, because you can find, I know people that are very, very skilled at sales and talking and communicating, but they don't have the actual consistency to really kind of get to where they want to go. And that's something that I think is a lot harder to teach or instill in people. And then I like what you were saying about, number one, I do think the model with Power, and I think it does attract other people that aren't necessarily already in the solar industry, and that's kind of a thing that requires a lot of training and a lot of coaching to and that's part of why the company itself maybe doesn't have as good of a reputation as they would like. And but that's a challenge with almost every solar company. Everyone wants to overpromise. Everyone wants to talk about how great their commissions are, how low their red line is, how much money people are making. But at the same time, like you said, don't compare your day one to I think you said day one to day, or
1,000, like someone
day
that's been
1000.
doing
Yeah.
this for
I tell
years.
people is like, don't compare the start of your story to the end of somebody else's, or your low lights to somebody else's highlights. Because that's another thing too, is even if someone's in a similar process with you, we all post when we are excited and when we just crush something, but no one's posting like, oh, today sucked. I knocked on 500 doors and didn't get a single deal. It was awful. I mean, a few people are, but the majority of people don't post that. And so when we have those days, we compare that to the person who says, "Oh, I closed 3 doors on, or I closed 3 deals on in 5 hours today, best feeling ever." And that's the challenge with social media and all that fun stuff. So you were in home other. What were you doing in other, like, what was the industry that you were in immediately before solar?
It was that in-home home improvement sales.
Okay, so
So
more like, once again, broad things, and then you found solar. That's kind of like what I was doing, because I was doing marketing for home service companies like appliance, HVAC, roofing, repairmen. I mean, there's home contractors, and I remember when I found solar, I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "That's how, like, that's how solar works. Like, these people are saving money, and how much is the commission?" I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was like, "I can't believe there's still people that are doing all these other jobs." Or spending money on all these other industries where it's a lot easier or a lot harder to attract leads, or it's more expensive to attract leads than solar. Um,
correct. So I was like,
so
here I'm selling a $20,000 roof with solar. I'm like, I'm not selling you anything. You already paid for it. We're just going to swap out a higher bill for a lower fix when you get to own. So it was just so a no brainer because I was selling like, $15,000 worth of windows, $20,000 roofs. And I was like, oh, solar doesn't really, you're not really selling anything they don't already need and have.
yeah, and it's a different sales process, because really you have to, a lot of people, you have to kind of shift their perception. Like, you have to help them
Mhm.
understand it, and then once you, if you're able to do that successfully, it does become easy. But you have to be able to kind of make them realize why it's different than those other things.
Yeah.
Because that's why you always hear people's like the ROI. Oh, the ROI on solar, I won't make my money back for 10 years or whatever. And it's like, I mean, yeah, that's true if you're looking at it from a cash perspective. Which, if you're spending money on cash, like even that, we can argue that the reason you're paying for cash is because you're never going to have an electric bill ever again,
Right.
assuming your system is properly sized. But uh, I think that kind of having the shift of you're already paying the utility bill, you're already paying the utility company, you're already spending this money. If you're spending this money, you can put it towards solar. No money is going to come out of your pocket other than what you're already spending. And that once people have that light bulb moment, that seems to be when things become fun and easy. And getting them there is always more challenging than you think. And you see a lot of reps that kind of, oh yeah, it's so easy, it's a no-brainer decision, and they talk to homeowners like the homeowners are dumb because they don't get it. And that's a mistake as well. So you're in California. So California, as of right now, is still, I mean, solar is awesome because you're able to replace that bill with a bill that's significantly lower. Have you been following or keeping up with like what's going on with California and all these regulations or whatever they're trying to do next year to make solar? Uh, Everyone says they're trying to kill solar in California. I'm not as up with it. Do you have an idea what's going on?
Yeah, they're actually passing, which failed this year, but they're going to vote again in January, and it would take effect in March. Where instead of right now, the connection of the grid fee with the three major utilities, which is PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E, the connection is about 10 to 15 bucks. Sometimes it could get into 20, which is relatively low for their electric bill once they go solar. So what they're passing now or trying to would cost $8 per kilowatt instead. So now their connection, on even a small system would be like 40 bucks instead. And also it's an unfavorable buyback. Right now it's a pretty good net metering program. It would be worse. And originally we had heard it would grandfather people on NEM 1.0 or 2.0 for 20 years. But the last paperwork I saw, it would only be for 10 years. So it's good and it's bad. It's obviously mostly bad if it passes, but it also helps us build urgency now. Hey, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, you'll be grandfathered at this $10 to $15 connection fee instead of on an 8 kilowatt system, that's $64 to connect to the grid. And I explain that to customers, as more of your neighbors go solar, guess, the utility companies are going to Congress and saying, hey, this isn't fair. We were only collecting 10 bucks. We used to get 300 from these people. And, they're lobbying and paying their money where they have to put it to get this to pass. So whether or not you go solar, you should support people saving money and owning instead of just a monopoly, basically going to government and saying we need to make more money.
Yeah, no, 100%. And when you look at, I'm surprised it took so long in California because California's always been, I mean, those companies have basically had a stranglehold on the market for so long. I'm surprised that it's been as solar friendly as it has been up until this point. And obviously, there's a lot of pushback. There's going to be uh, a lot can happen before March. If like we had something similar in Utah where everyone said, "Oh, Utah, the solar trying to cut our net metering from 8 to 1, and that's not accepted." And then basically they argue about it, they complain, they create a fuss, and eventually they settle somewhere in the middle, which still isn't as great as before, but it's better than what they were proposing. But it is strange. I mean, the good thing about California, and it's not a good thing, but um, the rates that they charge for electricity are just so insane. Like they can do that and it will still make sense. So I don't think the industry itself is going to die there, like some people I see are talking about on Facebook. But at the same time, it's not friendly for the customers. That's for sure. That's not the reason they're doing it. They're doing it because the utility companies and trying to keep them alive and well, even at so that they get to a point where they don't care if everyone makes the switch to solar because they're still getting their bare minimum. But that is interesting. So are you like what's your percentage as far as in local areas in California and across the country virtually? Like, are you a 50-50? Are you mostly virtual? Are you mostly in home? Like, what is kind of the breakdown of your sales?
I'm mostly California, mostly virtual. Maybe now I'm starting to go back to homes or at least for installs, but for closing like appointments and things, I'm about 70% virtual. I would say mostly California. I do some deals in Florida, Nevada, Texas, and Arizona. So I do other states virtually, obviously, but I love California. The savings are day one. I'm familiar with all the utilities, even the small ones here. So I do mostly California, but I do other states as well because I have a team out in other. I have team members in New Jersey, New York, Florida, all over Texas. So
Yeah, that's, I mean, those are probably the most popular states. I know California has always been kind of the, everyone loves California. It is super competitive, which is a different battle than someone who's trying to sell out in like North Carolina. But it's just, it's interesting how one of the cool things about being in the United States is every state is different. Every local utilities are different, and while these markets are all similar, more similar than you would be if you went to a different country, they're all have different variations and different laws and everything they have to keep up with. Which is kind of one of the reasons actually I haven't necessarily been as like recommending of people doing virtual as in the past, is because what we've come to realize is it is really important to understand the local the local conditions, understanding the utility company, understanding how things work, what the timelines are like, and the more local based we're able to be and kind of help and provide service, the in theory, the better results and service the customer is going to be getting from us. And so I like your approach because what you were mentioning is kind of what my belief is even if I'm selling in a specific market or something that I'm not maybe the best at, I still want to make sure that I have other people there that are able to assist me or aid me, or I can even hand it off to if they're just the right person for the job. Because that is something that, especially when COVID hit, everyone just started doing virtual. And then I was a marketing guy, and I had people come into me were like, okay, well, where can we get the cheapest leads? And then they would get the cheapest leads in like, uh, I don't know, like, oh yeah, I'm going to start selling in Wisconsin. And then they would go to Wisconsin and they wouldn't like, we would hand them leads and they would have the worst time possible on the sales side because they just didn't understand the utilities in the market. So that's
and you have
interesting.
to be able to sell different. So when you're doing virtual, you have to be able to sell on savings, which is California, the certain states, up the Northeast with their SRECs. You have to know a bunch of things. And if you're selling in a market like North Carolina, where they're paying 12 cents, you got to be able to sell the bill swap. So that takes a different skill set too. You can't tell the same in California as you would somewhere where the electricity is like New Mexico. I think I've looked at proposals there and done a couple of presentations, and they're like 9 cents a kilowatt. I mean, there isn't that much savings. You're future proofing. You're selling against inflation and ownership rather than savings. So
Yeah, New
I like
Mexico is an interesting one because I had once again I have people that come up to me like, "Oh, where's the best leads?" And then I tell them like, "Oh, like New Mexico and South Carolina, they both have this like state tax credit or state incentives."
that.
Um, and they're like, "Oh, 25% on top of the 20." Like that's incredible. I can't believe I haven't heard of this. Like new reps, and then they start selling in there and there's like still not really savings. And they're just, it's just an interesting thing because too many people try to simplify it as much as possible, like just before solar, after solar, and just selling that part. And a lot of those times, that's where we see the higher cancellation rates is when the reps don't actually know about the market. They don't know how long things are supposed to take. They're not able to give their customer the answers to local questions. Even if you give a customer like, "Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'll look into it for you," and then you look into it, but it's obvious that you weren't the expert. And if you do that for every single question they ask, they're going to lose confidence in you pretty quick. So, yeah, finding, be careful with anyone who's trying virtual for the first time. I think it is easier than people want to, a lot of people think it is. But at the same time, if you're doing virtual, you have to be specific. You want to be in a market that you are comfortable with better. That's more important than trying to find the cheapest leads possible, because then you're going to be selling in some place that you have never been and you don't understand, and then they're going to have all these rules that uh, governments and utilities like to make, it seems. I wanted to talk to you about, I know you have been one of the key people I have seen on Facebook that have been kind of promoting like women in solar and solar women, basically like they're creating a group and including other people in this industry, because obviously women are the minority in this industry, as probably a lot of sales industries. Can you tell me a little bit about like what was it that made you do that, and what kind of plans or efforts have you been making, and what have you also found? Because I feel like women are able to possibly sell and attract a different audience than a lot of men are, and therefore you're going to be able to reach different people. So can you just tell me a little bit about like what you have found as a woman in the solar industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the industry, of course, I found that many companies, I've been at four different solar companies or combination of, home improvement and solar. And what I always found is I was the only woman or one of like four. And then when COVID happened, I was in a organization where they laid off every woman except for me. So then it was just me and a bunch of guys at a big corporate company. And I found that they sometimes we get, not only are we underrepresented, but we're underappreciated in a lot of ways. And these are big, big companies with, that are on Wall Street that you would think, oh, they wouldn't participate in treating women differently, but they did. And they have. And I've experienced it myself to the point that I was like, women need to get together and we need to like make a space for ourselves until other people start creating that. And that's what I really liked about social media and why I'm so active is because when other people don't give you space and you create it and then others support that, it creates a movement. And so my whole thing, it's a nonprofit. I don't make a penny off it. We've had a mastermind. We have a group where all of us talk about it. We host weekly. Well, we used to host weekly there about once a month or twice a month, and even Zooms to help women feel included so that even a lot of them come and they message us and they tell us, I'm the only woman in my office. There's only 8 of us. And when they're in our group, they feel welcome. They can ask any question. Nobody treats them like they're silly. And a lot of them are just like, oh, how do you deal with, the customers flirting with you and different things that women face. But I have found that we are very strong in the industry once we stick to it and we do it and we don't listen to the outside noise or the people that might doubt us because we've all experienced it, not even on purpose or in a malicious way. Like I've had customers ask me like, you're going to check my, many years ago before there were more of us in it, like 4 years ago, guys would say like, you're here for my solar, or you're going to know about my panel. And I'm like, yes, I do know about your panel. Let's open it up. And they'll be like, are you going to break a fingernail? And I just kind of laughed it off. But we've all experienced it from other, coworkers, from bosses, and from even customers, and not in a bad way, just they don't see many women in construction. And it is, we call it the solar industry, but at the end of the day, it's still a construction position. And so just making it an even playing field, showing that we're just as capable, if not more. And like you mentioned, we bring the way that I kind of describe it is we bring like empathy, understanding, customer service, more of that warm woman touch. And so one time I was laughing because I was like, I have a whiteboard where I keep all my projects on. Even though I have them on a spreadsheet, I still like to visually see them because then I'll remember like, oh, I was supposed to call, this about this project or whatever. And I looked at it and I had like 13 names and there were 10 of them were women. So we clearly sell to other women, and women feel like more trusting of another woman, I guess, because we tell them, that's part of my whole thing is I tell people like, I build your system the way I would put it on my own house. I have solar on my own house and this is how I like it to look. I'm not going to put like 2 panels here, 3 over there, unless that's the only option. But I'm going to make it as aesthetically pleasing to what you like with the best production, with the best panels, warranties, black on black. I'm not going to put those old school lines on your roof. And they like that. They like the fact that we are very tailored and tuned into what they want. So we're working on this project together versus like, hey, what do you want? A or B? All right, here you go, sign here. We're very detail oriented. And I'm not saying men aren't, but that's what my customers tell me. I mean,
I'm saying that men aren't. I'll say that. I have no problem saying that women or men are less detail oriented than women. I mean, obviously there's like, oh, that's not true. I mean, obviously there's men that are very organized. There's women that are very unorganized. Like there's always extremes on both ends. But definitely, in my experience, generally speaking, men are pay less attention to details.
yeah. I mean, I've
So
had
you don't have to say it. I'll say it though.
So I'll tell
But
you this, like I've had cases where we've sold to females, several of them, a couple at least minimum that are still with me on my team, where we sold them, me and a mentee, we took care of the project from A to Z. We answer all the little questions and we're like people always laugh because they're like, how do you just reply instantly? And I'm like, because I'm always on my phone, you know? But to the point that they feel comfortable and they join my team after we sold them solar. So that's what I'm saying, because they see like, oh, this is a woman and she does it and she makes good money and I could do it too. So it's also not just about making a space and all, but showing every day. Like when I post stuff like, oh, we did this deal or we did that. I don't know if you follow me or anybody does, but
Mhm.
I never post about my personal sales because those don't matter to me. To me, it matters when I help someone with zero experience doing solar to become a solar pro. When they do their first 3 deals and they're on their own, showing, not telling. I always, my value is that I want to show women this is how you do it. And if you follow this pattern, you can do it too. But you got to be patient. You got to do the work and you got to not care what people think about you being a woman in solar. Like you just got to show them every day who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. And if you do that enough, nobody questions you, you know?
Yeah, um I think overall, like everybody needs to number not only really I think we need to stop thinking of all of us like in different labels and different reasons. Like we tend to look for the negatives in a lot of situations rather than looking at the positives. And like there is like the fact that I can definitely see how women in solar and women in sales, like there's things that traditionally happen in those kinds of environments that could make women feel excluded if or uncomfortable. And I think that's something that the more understanding we have, the better off they will be. But also, I mean, the more women that we get involved and get into the process and get active and make them feel comfortable, like you're doing with your Facebook group and all that stuff, the better. And I like that you talk. I've been thinking a lot recently about the people that you see that do post about all their personal deals, or the people that there's a lot of people that talk the talk even though they're not walking the walk. But once again, it's social media. Like just because you see it and that's what you're comparing them to, that's not a lot of times. I've seen the people that post the most and brag the most seem to be the ones that are also really struggling the most. They just don't want to let it on, or they won't admit it. But that's definitely interesting. And I will say, I don't think it's necessarily a woman thing. I think if you notice in the groups, anyone who asks any question that's relatively beginner, solar bros have a habit of kind of making those people feel pretty dumb. Um,
And that's one
and
of the reasons we don't allow men. I've had, like, we had said, oh, when we get to 300, we'll allow men. But we voted and the women said, no, let's keep it women only because nobody bashes anybody. Nobody makes fun of companies. They actually go in there and ask, like, hey, this happened. What should I do? And they'll get answers. And the women in there aren't just sales reps, they're CEOs, they're manufacturer VPs of panel companies, inverter companies. And it's super cool, like that we have somewhere where we could talk about things without feeling like I'm going to get this backlash. Like, you should, oh, go to your manager. That's what I see in those groups all the time. Whoever recruited you should have taught you. It's like, look, clearly I could reach out to that person, but I'm asking a panel of 3,000 of supposedly the best people in the country just to get another perspective. But we're treated as if we're dumb, you know, and that goes for everyone. And
yeah,
so,
it's. I apologize for interrupting. It's. I mean, it's definitely. I think solar. You think of like I say solar bros, and like I kind of do it jokingly because that's like the stereotype of like the solar salespeople who are just like, knock next door, knock door, like and now I have all the guys mad at me too. But it's definitely. I mean, I think it's just being able to feel comfortable and be happy and excited, and overall whatever helps not only the individuals get the the help that they need and the support that they need and the resources that they need, but whatever helps more solar pros get involved and more solar pros get better and more educated, and that is all going to help the industry itself grow, and we're going to be able to sell more solar and help more families, and we're all going to be able to make more money. And it's definitely important that uh, people are able to find a place to they don't have to fit the typical culture and like try to go in and be something that they're not. They can kind of create their own path and find a group that supports them, and that's really really cool because I do think that there it needs to be more women in solar in general. Um, but once again, that's also with variety sales. Did you ever notice with um, roofing and other industries, other home services, when you were in focus more on those, was it similar? Is there more women in solar compared to those industries? Is there more women in those industries? Like, what was your like looking back? What do you think the breakdown looks like?
It's similar. I see more women in solar though now. The
Hmm.
thing is, when I was doing the other thing, it was about 4 years ago when I was doing roofing and all that. So I wasn't really on social media as much. I think that where you see this whole new like division or kind of like what we're talking about is more on social media. And it's more people like people just like hyping themselves or their organization, and it might be a recruiting tactic, who knows. But when I was at the other company where I sold all those, it was about 60-40%, and that was a smaller company, but there was about 25 reps actually, and there was a pretty big chunk of women there too. Like there was more representation of women, but
Hmm.
again, we were selling windows and things like that some of the women were coming from backgrounds, like I used to do real estate before too, so we have a background in the home and like the values and how much things add and stuff. So yeah, it's about the same, but now I would say in solar we see a lot more women. The thing I saw a lot that I see more in solar than when I was in that industry is I see a lot more women coming and going. And my goal is to get them to stay, to feel supported enough to want to stay in solar and not see it as a quick buck or a transitionary thing. As like I tell people and they laugh, I'm like, solar is it. This is what I'm retiring from, you know? And if you're not that passionate about the industry or that sure about what you want to do, then it will come across in your sales and your team building and your recruiting and your business. You have to know, like, and be passionate about what you're doing and not look at it like, oh, I'll do this until the ITC runs out. If you're doing that, you will be squeezed out of the industry if and when it does go out. But if you're looking at this like, I'm not doing this for a quick buck. I'm saving the planet. I'm helping homeowners take control of their bill. And by the way, I happen to make good commissions on it. That if you have that whole approach to it and that passion comes through, being genuine, authentic, and that's your message, people buy what you believe in and your message and what you not, commission breath is a real thing. People can tell when you're just trying to make a quick buck. And when you're like, I work for you, I'm going to help you get a good deal, just like I got for myself and all these customers, then they want to go on that journey with you. They want you to be that person. And that's how you build a referral based business. So you're not always knocking doors. Nothing against knocking doors, but I don't unless it's an install because luckily I've built my reputation, branding, and people come to me and they're like, hey, my friend wants to go solar. Like I gave them your information. I'll connect you to. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm super lucky and blessed, but it didn't just happen overnight. And that's what people need to know. You give value, give value, give value, and then you ask, and then you post, hey, by the way, I could give you a quote, but not without doing the work. So you can't just expect to post a bunch of stuff about solar and everyone's going to reach out to you. Like you have to give value.
Yes, value, and you do have to ask too. I mean, there's people that they expect everything, even referrals, to fall into their lap, and they don't ask. And the thing that I think one of the biggest, like, if I had to talk to anyone who's a new sales or solar rep, I think one of the biggest things I would tell them when it comes to asking referrals is number one, don't overcomplicate it. You have to the key that I have found and is asking at the right moment. And there's not necessarily at the end of the process, not necessarily at the beginning of the process, but it's whenever the customer is expressing thanks. Like if they were like whenever they say, "Oh, thank you so much, I'm excited," or like those are the moments when they're feeling gratitude towards you. And that is the moment that you can say, "Hey, would you be like like no problem. Like I'm more than happy to help. If you wouldn't mind, I actually could have a small favor for you." And get them to do that in a way that they are helping you. We want to help people that we like. When we like somebody and we have a rapport with somebody and we're friends with somebody, like we want to do what we can to help them. But a lot of times they don't know that they can help us or they don't know how to help us. And if we make it clear for them that way, we're going to easily be able to get more referrals. But it does come only when you're building a relationship based business, and you're actually building rapport and being friends with people, which it sounds like you do. But I do know a lot of solar people that don't stress that, or they don't. I've been kind of railing on a lot of people recently on these, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble. But I think it's just important that we realize. the most important thing we have is when they get installed, our relationship with them shouldn't end. If we want referrals, if that customer brings us one referral a year for the next 5 years, that is more than enough reason for me to reach out to them, check in, send them text messages, Christmas cards, whatever it is. I should be reaching out to them and continuing that relationship. And even if the referrals don't come, it's still the right thing to do. And overall, if we do that with all of our past clients, it's going to lead to a lot more profits in the future. And the best thing about those deals is they're the absolute best. There's nothing better than a referral from somebody that trusts you, and the next person comes in and pretty much it's like your friend right off the bat and you're just helping them out. Those are the easiest deals. And there's nothing wrong with knocking doors, but very few solar reps I know want to be knocking doors when they're 60 years old or 55 years old. They see it as the most effective way to close deals and get cash now. But at the end of the day, we should be looking for easier ways to complement our main source of leads and revenue. What do
It's
you go ahead?
Oh, sorry to interrupt. It's kind of like what I tell reps, you can knock doors. That's a great source. I knock installs. So it's not like I don't knock because it's super easy. We did that recently. We knocked a door 3 houses away from an install. They set the appointment and in 5 weeks they were installed. Super easy, right? So it's easy to think that's the only way. But I tell people to be successful in solar, you should have 3 to 5 ways you get leads. You're going to do social media, you're going to do networking events and knock some doors, call some people, and then do your your dream 25 clients, 25 people that own a home, that are open-minded, that probably could use savings in the form of, their electric bill. So when you have all those, and that doesn't mean like go and hardcore close all of them, it's just plant seeds. There's
Well,
ways I
it's
used to.
back to what you were saying about providing value. So leading with value, not messaging the person you haven't talked to in 5 years and say, "Hey, have you gone solar yet?" Because that's the sales breath, even in message form that you were talking
Yeah.
about. So
And
I apologize. Go ahead.
no, no worries. So I used to work for this guy. I don't know if you know who he is, Ryan Stewman, hardcore closer.
Yeah, I
And I
know
used
Ryan
to,
Stewart.
yeah, so I was part of his tribe and then I worked for him and I used to sell these packages. And one of the big things is social recon, right? So if you're constantly posting on Facebook, and it can't just be solar, this is my strategy. This is how I get a lot of leads and people on my team. I post about solar and the solar, a meme and then a story, and then I'm out on vacation and just really your life. People are attracted to that. So it's like it becomes attraction marketing. And that's so much more genuine. And so, like in California, a mature market where you meet people with 10 proposals, when you're referred, it's you get to the top of those 10 proposals, right? You're already in the top three, and now you just got to give them a good value and make it make sense for them. But like what he used to teach was like basically you become the expert and then people seek you, so that when you're doing that, you're not out there like constantly like where's my next lead going to come from, because eventually they're coming to you. And that's what he taught us. That's what I've been doing for a while now. And that's the more it's like a funnel. So this is his algorithm. He taught us is value, 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 and then ask. So personal story, like I have an algorithm and I teach that to my reps. And that's how they're able to get deals without knocking doors. Some of them are closing 3 to 5 a month, not having knocked one door, all social media. And that's because they have a funnel they've built on their thing. So get to 5,000 people, then get people that are interested, go in those Facebook groups and provide value, not just like, oh, you could, because I see this a lot, like 26% credit, yada, yada, listing of a bunch of things. None of those make sense. Nobody wants to go solar. Nobody wants to buy solar, but they want extra money. They want a fixed bill, and they want the lifestyle that they're going to achieve with the $26,000 or saving or whatever. So that's what I teach for lead gen as far as my reps. And some of them do, buy ads, and I've done it myself and things like that. But the best sits, close, and that refer the most are people that were referred.
Yes, I completely agree, and I'm glad you brought up you brought up Stuman because I've been loving what he's been doing with commenting on all of Dave Ramsey's posts.
I didn't
I
see that.
see you haven't seen. He's been every single time Dave Ramsey, and like I don't have any problem with Dave Ramsey. I think it's interesting that I mean I think there's different types of people, and I think there's people that are looking to work until they're 65 and then retiring comfortably with a small pension. And then there's people that are entrepreneurial and they want to make more money and they want to retire earlier and they want to have more fun and all that kind of stuff. But Steuben, he's been like commenting on Dave Ramsey's post. Like anytime Dave Ramsey posts any advice, Steuben does like a comical retort. And it's entertaining. Like every time I see it, I get excited to see a Ramsey post, not because of Ramsey, but because of the responses and the replies. And it is interesting. But what he's doing there is, and what probably a lot of people don't realize is they think he's just like having fun, making, which he is. He's having fun. He's in a way kind of making critiquing Dave Ramsey's advice, but at the same time, he's doing more as far as brand recognition for people that are seeing those Ramsey treats. And maybe they think Ramsey's like a great guy and he knows, maybe they think he's a perfect mentor for them or whatever. And then they start to see somebody else that has a different take and a different approach, and they see him in every single comments, and he's growing his following and getting more people that maybe aren't as entrepreneurial, like open to the types of stuff that he's involved with and has to offer. And once again, it's marketing, but he's having fun with it. And it's awesome because it's entertaining. It entertains me. And that's the kind of the best type of marketing, because it doesn't feel like marketing. And then it kind of what you were speaking of regarding like different 100%, everyone should have multiple sources. You should never be reliant on one source. I don't care if it's door knocking, I don't care if it's online leads. I agree. And like I'm one of the few marketers who say online marketers suck, because we do. It's not like even if you have a relationship and you're getting good like incredible great results, it's still a roller coaster. There's good months, there's bad months. There's things that work one month that don't work the next month. It's going to be if you are only using online leads, it's an insanely uncomfortable roller coaster, and it's going to make you want to throw up. And you should always have multiple channels. And especially if you're starting out and you're not like 100% confident in your solar closing abilities, then you shouldn't be paying money anyways. You should be knocking doors, trying to get referrals, posting content, like all this stuff that you can do that requires hustle rather than money. So that's very important. What regarding like referrals, how do you coach your people that use you as a mentor, people that are that you're managing, that you're coaching, you're helping? How is it like, what is there any specific tips that you give them? I mean, it sounds like you give them kind of the formula, which is a bunch of different types of posts. Can you give us like a little bit more details about like general recommendations that you give to somebody who maybe feels like they're not using social media like they should be?
Yeah. So that social media is just a part of it. I tell them to contact like their friends and family, anybody that they think. I also give them like what I don't post anymore, but I used to when I was first started on those Facebook groups, like before and after bills, some stuff about
So
solar.
So I apologize. I just want to clarify for anyone watching. So when you say like reach out to your friends and family, how do you recommend that someone reaches out to their friends and family?
Oh,
Because a
like
lot of people
normal.
that hear that, they just go and they say, "Hey, have you gone solar yet?" And
No,
once again, the
no.
sales breath, even in message form. But how do you
Yeah, no.
recommend reaching out or providing value for future
Yeah,
relationships?
no, totally. Like a regular conversation, like, hey, how are you? How have you been? How are the kids? How have you been dealing with COVID? Like a normal conversation. And then how is work? And they're going to ask you, how is work, right? So if they're new, they'd be like, oh, it's great. You know what? I just started doing solar on the side. And they're going to go, really? What made you get into that? Oh, well, like I thought about it for my home, or I saw my friend got solar and saved a lot of money, and I looked into it and I started it as a side. Or if they're doing it full time, I got laid off from my work or I quit my job, whatever, and I started doing solar where I'm able to help a lot of people save money, add equity to their home, and basically just swap out their high electric bill for a lower one they get to own. And then they're like, oh, really? And so just casually, not ever like, the worst thing you could do is like what you mentioned, just message like, hey, have you gone solar? Like you're gonna like make it uncomfortable on the holidays or birthdays when you see them, right? Because you're just doing that. But a really easy way to get your friends and family, because they're mostly on your social media, right, is you just start posting. And I always tell people, don't post like I do solar or like this or that. I say tell stories. Like, here's the Ramos family. They went from a $200 bill to 120 fixed for 20 years, and then it's theirs. They also getting a great $9,000 credit to do whatever they want with, or because stories sell. If you tell a story, it's creating a vision in their head. Like, oh, like, dang, I have a high bill too. So at the end of the day, like they're either you're going to reach out to them, but in a natural way, like you're just, hey, have you, how have you been? Oh, by the way, I know you got the house. Congratulations. How's everything? How are your neighbors? But, and how much do you pay for electricity? And then they'll either say very little or a lot. And then be like, oh, the only reason I mention it is because I'm in solar. Now I can, it costs you nothing but about 20 to 30 minutes to see if you could save with it. And if you don't, that's fine. And if you do, well, that'll put more money in your pocket now that you got that mortgage, right? And that's it, like a conversation. Don't pitch, don't be like the pushy person. And if you do it right, Kyle, like I'll give you an example. I've been selling it for a while. My family knows. I went to a winery with my cousins and my aunt the other day, and I didn't talk about solar at all, but I had posted about the rates going up with the connection. And they had already thought of it solar before. I didn't push it on them or nothing, but their sister had it from me, earlier this year. So before I left, they're like, "Oh, what's going on with that thing going up?" And I just explained shortly. So then when I was leaving, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to send you my bill. I've been meaning to do it, and like now I have two more proposals." But it was organic. I didn't ask. I didn't push them. I didn't. You just put your life.
Gosh, you're just trying to enjoy a day at a winery, and these people just
I
want your
was like,
help.
"Okay."
Gosh,
It was
no,
great. So it
yeah,
should be that organic, and it should be that natural that it's just what I do. I don't sell solar. I don't push people. I just do what I do. I help people and I tell stories, and other people, it resonates with them. But it's not like just a 26%, this credit, this. I'm like, look, this homeowner got a roof.
sign
Amazing.
up in the next 3 days, and we'll throw in $2,000 cash back.
None.
Um,
That's
yeah,
desperate. And people could tell when you're selling out of desperation and when you're selling out of a passion and something you believe in and you want to help others.
yeah, I think there are people that sell solar like it's a product, like it's something that goes on sale at the end of every month that people want to get a cash back or the discount, and they're not really selling the benefits. They're trying to sell like the product itself, which is just not the right way. I don't want. It's not the way that solar is sold, at least
Right.
not currently. Like eventually one day when sales reps are far as not as common and people just go online and they click buy and it's on their roof like within a month or whatever. Like one day, maybe in the future, that might be the way it's sold. But as of right now, it's still about educating people. And there is a lot of confusion that requires a salesperson. That's why we're still here, obviously. And then another thing that people maybe don't realize, they think like talking or conversing with people on your friends list, messaging them, they think that's a lot of work, or there's like it's not like you could talk to someone for years and never even get to the point where they're ever going to buy from you. And that's perfectly fine. That's we should be okay and comfortable with that. But what you don't realize is when we're messaging people on Facebook, and I'm not saying you don't realize, but a lot of people don't realize, is when you message people on Facebook and you're keeping conversations with them, Facebook kind of connects you guys more. So you're going to see more of their posts and they're going to see more of your posts. Because I think that's one of the things that people think on social media. It's like I post something, all my followers see it. That's not how social media works. But what happens is if you start conversing with someone, you start to identify those people that might be potential clients and you're starting to build relationships with them, then they will see all of your posts and you're going to be able to kind of in a way you're not necessarily like hard selling them, but you're making sure that they're the ones that are going to see the stuff that you do post in the future that educates them and prepares them for that transition somewhere down the line. And that's the main
And you're
reason that we do
correct.
it on Facebook too.
That's what it is. You build an affinity. So, like in regular real life, if I wanted to sell solar to my neighbor, I would sell him a mailer and then another mailer and then a phone call, maybe a text. It takes 8 touches on average for someone to like say, hey, okay, like I'll buy, right? So what you're doing through social media is you are creating that illusion. Like people, sometimes I meet them and they tell me, I feel like I know you, and they don't know me. Like I've never met them before. But it's because you share publicly so much about your personal life, your business, what you do for fun, that you become known. It's just like when we watch TV and we feel like we know the Kardashians or whatever. We don't know them, but we feel like we know their personality and how they are. So I want to make that clear for like regular sales. I do very traditional, like this is what it is, this is how it goes. But it's a different way to handle like referrals or people that know you. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's
Yeah.
not sold the same because when you don't know someone and there is no rapport and stuff, it sometimes is in solar a lot of times, especially in California where they have 3 to 5 bids, it is going to be the numbers. So one of the main things that I teach my reps and that I do is I ask what is it that interested you in going solar? Because that's going to tell me like, is it money? Is it the environment? A little bit of both. Like, what is it that you like? Your neighbors went solar. Okay, I'll make sure you get a better deal than your neighbors. So kind of reading people and then adjusting to that personality type is what's helped. And I teach that to my reps. I teach them, like the whale, dolphin, shark, and sea urchins. You're not going to sell a person that's only focused on money on saving the planet. They don't care. At the same time, if somebody is about saving the planet and they want good warranties, they're not looking for the cheapest. They'll even tell you, I'm not concerned about the least expensive. I want the best products. Great. We got those. We have 5 options instead of most companies that might give you 1 or 2. So it's about reading. So I do a lot of this kind of training for my reps. Like I have them watch my overcoming objections videos and things like that, because that is the essence of solar, is finding out what moves somebody to get them to make a $40,000 purchase within 1 or 2 closes. And I tell people, like, don't worry about it being the first close, a first one call close, especially with virtual. So the main goal at the beginning is to sell the appointment. Then at the appointment, you educate and you sell them on the value. And if they say, oh, I'm not sure that I want to do it today, now you're selling them on that other appointment where you will close them. So it's a series of little sales to get to that big one, because we're not making $500. We're making 5,000 and up. So you got to be patient. You got to work your pipeline, and you got to just be like, oh, that's great. I'm glad you're getting other bids, because I want you to compare mine and see what I'm giving. And, all I ask is that we compare apples to apples. And then I look at your other bids to make sure you're getting exactly what you need, because I work for you. Whether it's through my company or through another company, I'm going to help you make the best decision. And that's what it comes to: trust and integrity. And if you do those two, then you're leaps ahead of the guy that's just going in for a hardcore one-time close, leaves, and then someone shows them a better deal and they lost that deal, right? So
Yeah. Too many people, um, a lot of people I spoke with in solar, they kind of like lock themselves in boxes where it's I always do one call closes. I never do one call closes. I always sell with a battery. I never sell with a battery. And it really, when we start to like put some of those things and we kind of work in, I'm thinking there's a Star Wars quote about something about no, only a Sith works in absolutes or whatever. That's a Yoda quote for any nerds out there. That like when we kind of lock ourselves in those boxes, we're kind of in a way we're preventing ourselves from really helping the customer in the most effective way. Because there are, even if you're not someone who typically does a one call close, you might get on the phone with somebody and find that they're ready to go, and
yep,
lengthening the process is going to slow them down, and if anything it might hurt your sale
yep.
and overall the quality of their experience. And so we don't ever want to like lock ourselves in those absolutes, like one way or the other, whether it's batteries or specific brands or savings or no savings, or people that pay with cash. Like there's so many things that we're not educated well enough on, and we just assume that the customer wants something, or they want it this way, or this is the way that's going to work best. And every customer is different, so it is really kind of like an individualized prescription. um,
I used to tell my reps, so I worked at Verizon for 9 years and I was a sales manager, and I'd be like, stop selling out of your own pocket. You have no idea. This person could look homeless and they're a baller, or they could look like a baller and they want the cheapest plan. Stop selling, start asking, and they will tell you how they want to be sold. Same
Yeah,
thing applies to
100%. I
LCOs. Yeah,
was I was
right.
a fitness manager and personal trainer, and I remember I was like, I mean, I worked at some high-end gyms where we're selling like personal training for like $150 an hour or something like that.
Oh,
And it was always like my you meet somebody, and it's like when you're in that mode as a personal trainer, I meet someone and you're like, oh, this person can't afford personal training, or this person can afford personal training. Like you make that judgment
right,
subconsciously, and it's hard not to, because it's like I personally was like, I can't afford to pay somebody $150 an hour to work out with me.
right.
Like I couldn't do that, and because of that, it's hard to really understand the value. And I think that's something that I struggled with when I was there, but it's the same thing in solar. Is
Yep.
anytime we make assumptions about people, whether they're in it for the money or they care about the environment, or they can't afford solar, they're not going to qualify for credit. Whenever we start to make those assumptions, we handle the situation differently, rather than actually finding out the truth and digging in and getting to know them. Because people just don't really, we don't really want to get to know people. Not enough people build rapport. They treat
Yeah.
it like
And the more rapport, the more you like listen to them, the easier the sale and the more things they usually want. I've
yeah,
showed people like 3 quotes and I explained everything, and they're like, oh, the other company told me that a battery is not really worth it because the technology is new, this and that. And I showed them 3 quotes and they took the one with a battery, having 3 other quotes. So it's never about what we want, it's about what the customer wants. And all we're doing is basically finding out what their trigger buttons are and making them happy, because either way we're going to save them. It's just a matter of with what. And if
yeah,
people stop selling out of their own pockets and start listening to customers, that's where you get referrals as well, because that's when they say like, oh, she's not going to pressure you, or he's not going to pressure you, he's just going to ask you questions and make sure that it all makes sense. And if you want extra, if you want to get an electric car in the future, the other guys didn't even ask me that, or whatever. Stand out by being genuine, authentic, and listening. And we're not really salespeople, we're problem solvers as consultants.
yeah. It's I was almost gonna do a second Star Wars reference. I'll do a second Star Wars reference. I'm not a big Star Wars guy. I just, for some reason, they're popping in today. I forgot what book I read. This was a couple of years ago, but one of the things the book said was, when you're looking at yourself in this journey, like, you're not the main, like in sales, we're not Luke Skywalker. We are Yoda. Our job is to help them and be on their side and help them
Yeah.
through this journey. So when we ask questions, rather than telling them things, we ask questions so that they can realize things and it becomes their idea. They're able to kind of connect with it better, and they understand it better, and they just have a much better experience that way. And the other thing too is, you mentioned it probably like 10 minutes ago now, but we were talking about how you want to position yourself and talk about, if there is an enemy, which I don't necessarily know if it's important to like bash anybody, but if there is an enemy, you want it to be the utility company. You want to be able to place yourself on side of them, show them how solar can help them, what it can do, how it's going to lower their bills. And your ultimate goal is to be their advocate, but you want them to feel like you're their advocate. A lot of people say they're the customer's advocate, but a lot of the times the customers maybe don't even feel that way when they get in the conversation. They feel like there's a salesperson that's sitting on the other side of the table that's just trying to do whatever it can to get the product on the roof. And those are the people that do struggle with referrals, because they don't have that relationship, and they don't have that close bond with their customers. And that's awesome, because I believe Jonathan Bernasso.
Yes, he's the one that got me into power.
Yeah.
I've
Okay. So
known him
yeah,
for
you know him better than I do then.
2 years or so. Yeah.
I remember when I interviewed him, and he's very, very he the thing that hurts me is, like, he's like, I've never knocked doors. And I was like, whoa, like in solar, that's almost unheard of. But he has kind of a very methodical and very like organized approach as far as how he builds his network and how he gets referrals and how he's able to grow his team. And that's kind of what impressed me most about him, with his ability to get referrals. And I think ultimately you have to have the process down, and then also you have to be able to really connect with people and do that, where you're their advocate, you're on their side, you're able to make that transition. Then once you make that transition, helping them to find and make the decision that's best for them, but doing it in a way that doesn't have that high pressure kind of door to door sales stigma. Like when that guy comes to my door and tries to sell me a $2,000 vacuum, um, which we actually did buy like a year ago.
Yeah.
Uh, but still, it's just it's when you are able to do that, I think that's where we get into really the long term benefits of putting your name on it, getting referrals, creating your brand, and having an army of happy customers that just bring you more happy customers.
Yeah. So
So
I laugh about, sorry to
go
interrupt.
ahead.
I kind of laugh about that with Jonathan. Like one time I told him, you know why you get customers? Because you just really don't give an F. And he's like, what do
Mhm.
you mean? And I'm like, the way you talk, like, oh, well, you're going to save this. And like he doesn't care. So that's the opposite of commission breath. He does like, he didn't even know. I told him, I was like, you do like the ultimate takeaway close. And he's like, you think? I'm like, yeah, because you make them feel like they'll be dumb to go with someone else and not with you, the pro, and you don't really care because you have so many customers that whether you do it or not, I don't care. So that makes them want it more, if that makes sense. I
Yeah,
tell
no, it
people,
does. I think, and so I don't know Jonathan well. I literally, I think I had one, maybe two calls with him. One of them was an interview like this, and but I remember like the thing. What impressed me most was that he just had the systems in the game plan. Like he understands and looks at the big picture. Like this is how I get referrals, and that's why he probably has more referrals than he knows what to do with. And then also, but like you said, it is true when you start to have that mindset and you start to pitch in a way that uh, the customer doesn't necessarily feel like you need them. If you pitch in that way, it is like you're not a salesperson, you're just someone who's helping them make the decision. And at that point, it kind of takes the pressure off them. Because a lot of times when people hear that or feel that pressure or smell that sales breath, they just like want to say no and get out of the situation as fast as possible.
yep,
And so they don't even get the information that they need to make the decision. And it becomes, just another sales pitch. And that is interesting, though. I've never really thought about it, but that is true. I remember when I did that from my marketing agency. I remember when I started telling people like I'm not taking new clients.
they
It
all
was like
wanted to be a
I got
client.
more messages
Yes,
than ever in my life. I was like, I don't do that anymore. No, leave me alone.
yep,
And it's just funny how that works because it is like you're taking it away from them
yep,
when they know that you don't need them. It's just, I mean, it's the same thing with dating. I never had that issue because
yes.
I tricked my wife when I was like 15 years old. So I've had her. I tricked her a long time ago. But I mean, it's the same thing with dating. Is all the guys that or the people that don't like you or at least pretend like they don't like you. Those are always the people that they seem to like the most. So
Yeah,
it's interesting.
that's so funny and interesting you said that because I've told that to people. It's like dating. The more you're out there like trying to get someone, so if you're data vomiting, people like solar, 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 they can read that. Just like in dating, if you're after someone, the minute you don't care and you're just like, oh, whatever, they're like, oh wait, but let's go out. And then you're like, what? Like it's because it's just like dating actually.
Well, we
Very
what it's like.
people want what they can't have.
I'm sure there's a psychological term that if I was, smarter, I would come up with, but or I'd be able to reference right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the same as like you want what you can't have. I mean, that's really
It's
it comes down
FOMO.
to it.
It's FOMO.
It's yeah, it's FOMO. It's fear of missing out, but it is also. I mean, it's you don't want to miss out, but you also when we can't have something, we want it. Like I see it with my 3-year-old, and I tell him, no, we can't do that. And what is all of a sudden he wants to do that more than anything else in the world, and it is human
Mhm.
psychology and it is interesting. But when we kind of change the conversation rather than we're helping you to do this and we change it to we're trying to see if you're going to be able to do this,
Yep.
that it just is very very powerful because they want in. It is FOMO.
That's why the big companies, they don't say like get solar, do this. They say see if you qualify. Let's
Yeah.
see, and then I worked at a company, just kind of this brought it up, where we had a script we had to memorize 7 pages, and we had to actually say this to people. This was part of the script, right? They said, oh, well, we don't know if you qualify. And then the customer will say, well, doesn't everyone qualify? Guys knock my door all the time. And I go, oh no, the hardest part of my job is telling half of the people I meet with that they don't qualify. And they go, well, why wouldn't I qualify? Well, your roof, your credit, the direction of the sun, shading, and you tell them like all these reasons. So then they're like, so how do I find out if you qualify? Well, I got to run your credit, make sure that passes. Then we're going to qualify your home. And then if everything looks good, I'm going to provide you with a final design, and then we move forward to permitting. So that was literally part of the close, was like the FOMO was built right into this whole thing. And because you're the first person, they'll be like, well, why didn't the other guy tell me? Well, I don't know how thorough that person was, but you got to meet 5 criteria to go solar. So I don't know how they told you qualified without even running the number or without even running your credit or looking at your roof. And I'm like, so right now, this is all theory. I want you to go solar, but I can't tell you will until we check off these boxes in order to see if you qualify. And I swear that closed so many more sales than just it's a psychological thing, fear of missing out. Like, why
Yeah,
does my neighbor qualify and I don't? Let me qualify too.
exactly. Or what do I need to do so I can qualify?
Mhm.
Like all of a sudden they're like,
They
if
will
you tell them
literally
like, oh,
close
it's because
themselves.
it's because your credit score is at 610, and then they're like, all of a sudden they're like, the most important thing in their life
Let
is,
me
oh,
find a
I'll figure
cosigner.
out how to get that
Like they
up.
would
I'll get a
literally tell
cosigner.
me, "Oh, my son could co-sign, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's bring him over." But it's like the minute you take away, it's just one of the strongest ways to close. And I don't do that as much now because it's a very intricate kind of technique, and I do a lot of referral based. But when I was just doing straight 3 to 5 appointments a day for these companies, that was the way you got a deal was you took it away. You said you can't, you might not even qualify. How do I know? You know?
Yeah, I will say though, one thing that I have noticed with people that have success, once again, people that like they find something that works and they just like that's all they do, and that's an issue in itself. But I have seen people that have a lot of success with that, and like, well, like we're just here to see if you qualify, and like they pitch it that way, and but then they end up getting the signature, oh, you qualify, and they schedule the site survey, but they never actually went through with like the actual close. And there are a lot of people that do that, and they're like, oh yeah, those are the people that talk about how they close 10 deals, but then
But then like
six
half of them didn't.
six of them
Right.
cancel, and just because they don't really understand what even happened.
Yeah.
And so definitely you have to have the full equation. But I do
That's
agree.
like
I mean,
a very, it's a, that's why I don't teach that to anyone because it literally, after you do that and you take it away so hard, they qualify. You're like, oh, congratulations, you do qualify because they're like surprised sometimes, right, with their credit.
yeah,
And then you go, now we just got to make sure your roof qualifies too. Are you excited? Like you're going to, and then you're going to stack back all the things that made them go solar. So like, this is awesome. You know, like you, now we know you qualified. Now we're just going to check the roof. I'll probably, if I feel like it's kind of a weak one, then I'm going to go back to the site survey as well. If not, you're going to follow up and be in constant contact and build that relationship after that hard close. So there's a science to it. You can't just do that because you'll get half cancellations, you know? So
yeah.
you have
Well,
to
I
build
think
a relationship.
it's almost like you're in the process, like you've made it to the point where it's a layup, but you still have to lay
Mhm.
it up. Like you still have to,
Exactly.
you can't just stop at that point and pretend like the deal is closed because
Mhm.
you believe it's closed, but the customer doesn't feel like it's closed.
Right.
And they, next thing they know, there's someone coming for the site survey and they're checking up. And then at the site survey, they're probably expecting like, like, okay, so did my roof qualify? And then you're like, yeah, installation's in 2 months. And they're like, oh, well, I never agreed to that really.
Right.
And it just becomes a, uh, that's the thing, is that you see a lot of people that sell the appointment, or not necessarily the appointment, they sell the site
Site
survey
survey.
and they close the site survey as if it's a closed deal. And that's
Yep.
an okay approach, but you have to make sure that you have the process after the site survey to
Right.
like say, okay, like this is what we saw on the roof. Like here's everything. Here's all the information. This is like these are the most accurate numbers that we're going to be able to give you. So are you going to stick here, or would you want to save money and make the switch now? And
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I'm not a, like I said, I'm not a sales guy, I'm a marketing guy. But the main
Yeah, I
thing is
wouldn't
like
do it
you
that
have to have
way.
the conversation then.
My way is a little different. Like,
Okay,
oh,
so go.
congratulations. Like, this is awesome. You qualified. Your roof looks good. Like, that's awesome. Because you're making them feel like they're qualifying for something that most people don't qualify for, right? Or like a lot of people don't. So then you go like, okay, so next, now all we got to do is we're going to go ahead and take this. In a couple of days, I'll have a final design. It's going to probably look like this because now we measured it out. And then after that, we're going to go to permitting. Should be no more than like 2 to 3 weeks. And then once we got the permit, we're going to be here to install. I'll be here that day. I'll bring you some goodies and stuff. And maybe you have some recommendations on some of your neighbors or family members that you would like to save money also. And I'll go ahead and give you a referral for those. And we're basically just helping people switch to clean, renewable energy at a lower cost. Like you have to make them feel warm and fuzzy. Like, damn, I'm doing this. And I
Well,
always tell them,
no,
you're saving the planet, you're helping the environment, you're getting like, you know,
what I love about that is your close is already moving into the referral process,
uh-huh.
and it's a way of
Like I'm
you're
bypassing the
giving
do
their
I still want to
expectation,
clean?
you're celebrating the event, and all they have to do is say yes, and everything else is going to just fall into place. So
Right.
I love that. That's why people like you are better than nerds like me who like to hide behind the computers. But regardless, I do think that's very good, because I think that's something that not enough people talk about. Is there are the reason that the cancellation rate is so high, one of the reasons why the cancellation rate is so high is because it is a longer process. And at any point, if the customer is unsure about what's going on in that process,
Yeah.
that is when they start to think like, well, like, do I want this? Like, and that's where all those cancellations come in, is because it's not the same as a vacuum salesman who shows up at your door and you
And
get
you're
the
done.
pitch, you say yes, they hand you the vacuum, and you're like, hey.
Bye.
And even if I regret that vacuum 2 months down the line, I'm going to have a hard time trying to return it. But if you with solar, if they you give them that process and then you're not necessarily vocal about what the next steps are, and they kind of, any confusion, they're going to say no and they're going to try to back out. And that's one of the things that we want to avoid. And we can do that by communicating with them better. So we have gone for over an hour and 10 minutes, which is longer than most, which no, it's fine. My last one with Kenny Perry, Kenneth Perry. That one was like almost 2 hours, and
Oh,
we were talking nonsense and all that stuff. But it was a lot of fun, and I enjoy when we get into it because the last 30 minutes or so have kind of flown by. One thing I want to ask you about, I think I saw that you were going to do a solar comedy podcast. Is that true?
yes. I'm
Tell me
working on
about
it
that.
with,
I want to hear about this because I'm
yeah, we're
intrigued.
gonna start it in January with Omar Segura. We get on the phone like at least once a week, if not more, and we just laugh at all the things that go wrong in the industry. Like, oh, you're not going to believe this. They forgot to, do this to the roof, and I got this picture from my customer with this leak and this, and oh no, now what happened? Oh, they didn't pay me because of a $8 discrepancy on the cash, price or something. So we literally sit around and just laugh at all the things that could and do go wrong in solar. And so we're like, imagine if we made a podcast that we just had a bunch of people talking to make light of, no pun intended, light of the industry, instead of just how to sell, how to do more. Like, we also just look at the realistic part of it. And if you don't have a sense of humor, you're not going to make it in solar very long because things can and do go wrong. And so all we do is laugh. He's been in solar maybe like 7 years. I've been 4 years, and then we're just like, oh, did this ever happen to you? Like when you worked over here, and we just laugh. So yeah, we're gonna start that next year. And Omar's like the funniest guy. He makes TikToks about just like pretending to be the customer and then him. So he's gonna do a lot of his like humor and stuff. So we're just making light of it, and maybe
It
you could be a
sounds
guest on it too.
Oh, I don't know if I want that. I don't know. Being funny is a big responsibility. Like I occasionally can be funny, but like that's why a comedy show, I'm like, oh, if you're not funny, then it's like defeats the purpose of the show. Whereas like if I do a thing like this, I can talk about marketing, but if I'm funny, it's like a little bonus. And one of the reasons I ask is because I am actually in the new year. I'm in January. I'm moving, and I'm moving to a completely new state, big place. But one of the things I'm doing once I get there is I'm going to be doing like open mic nights and practicing stand up comedy. And it's like I've been writing material for a long time, and I've never actually done it. I'm mainly doing it. I don't expect to actually be good, but I just want to be a better public speaker. But I think it's interesting because the solar industry, there's a lot of stuff to make fun of.
Totally. Like I
And with
don't.
this, go
Yeah,
ahead.
we just laugh for hours sometimes, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta go. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and we're just laughing about all the things that go wrong. Like, and we've had like installer went to the wrong house and started installing, and like just the craziest things you could think of. We've gone through. So yeah, we just kind of want to laugh at it, and
Did
so
you
people that are new too see that it's not all perfect. Like this is normal everyday stuff.
Well, also with like everything that's going on in this crazy world, it's like it's kind of it sounds like the podcast is like pretty much as a place where you can like go and have fun and talk about work, talk about the industry, talk about all the nonsense that you have to deal with managers and installers and all that stuff. And like nowadays, like we used to, I mean, you used to go to work and you'd go and work in an office and you go to a bar after and you go with 8 of the people from the bar and you talk crap
Like a
about the
happy
manager and all
hour.
that. Yeah, like a happy hour, but you don't really have that in this new, some people maybe do, but as with social media, we have the ability to kind of do that on a larger scale. And
Mhm.
it's a pretty interesting and cool concept to really think about because there's a lot that you can talk about.
Yep.
And if you're in a position where you're not afraid of offending people, that's really where it could get really fun. But it'll be interesting. I'll definitely be a viewer. I don't know. I'm not going to
Great.
necessarily be a guest. I'll be a guest eventually, but let's just I want to see what I'm getting myself into
You
first.
want to
Did
read
you
it a
guys?
little.
Yeah, yeah, I want to prepare myself. Did you ever figure out a name? I think I saw a poll or something. Do you guys ever think of a name for that?
No, we still have to pick. I haven't added up all the stuff, and then I think it's probably going to be like what in the solar coaster, but it's still not
Oh,
set in
sorry.
stone because it's
Oh,
like what in the how, but like what in the solar coaster because it's everybody knows the solar coaster, you know.
yeah. See, I'm not a fan. I love the solar coaster. I think life is a solar coaster.
But
Um,
somebody wanted the epic fail stories or something like that, but then I go, then we got to focus on all the negative stuff, you know.
well, like I was thinking, like I mean, because the name I think of I think Joe, Solar Joe. Hey, Solar Joe, Solar Lily. I think you guys might be the only two people I know that are really like effectively branded as the solar blank. But Solar Joe, I think, had a joke, and it was like um, something. I'm gonna butcher it though. It was like telling the homeowner that solar's like it's completely
Um,
free, and they're like, "Really? How is that possible?" He said, "Because it's on the house." And
oh yeah,
that
that's
was like the
hilarious.
dad joke. So I was thinking
Yeah,
like, you could do like the on the house podcast, but that or you just gotta think of I don't know. The name really doesn't matter as much
yeah,
as the content, but it is interesting. I'm definitely on board. I want to hear the stories and see see what kind of stuff you guys are able to make. So good job on
for
committing to that
sure.
because I'm excited. No pressure, but
No, no
I'm sure it's
pressure.
going
We're
to be
just doing
awesome.
it to have fun, but like we laugh so much that I'm sure it's going to be funny to others. So we'll see.
Mhm.
Well, I look forward to having you view it and obviously like somehow working together. Are you going to be at SolarCon? I didn't even know. I just randomly asked you that.
Thank you for putting me on the spot. You're talking about the event that's sponsored by the Solar Academy, right?
Yeah,
The one that I'm technically partnered with, and it's here in Utah, which is
that's
where I
awesome.
currently
Yeah,
where
that's
I
why I
where I
asked.
currently live. So now I'm really boxing myself in, and it's hard for me to say no, I won't be there, but I'm pretty sure I will be.
Cool.
I haven't, I'm not 100% on it, but I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be. And I'm sure Jake will figure out a way to get me to do more than I want to do.
Yep. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
brought it up because I
No.
think that it's important to have those things where we all meet. Like, we all do the virtual thing, we meet on podcasts, we do the Facebook, but it to me in person, it's like a different dynamic. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
be there. I hope I get to meet you and a bunch of other solar people that I haven't met yet to just continue to grow and expand. And I think like doing what you're doing, the podcast and all that, it's like pioneering a movement for an industry that's relatively new. So just imagine like 10 years from now when we're all like doing much bigger things, it's going to be like, oh, remember we were on each other's podcasts at the first solar con. And I think that's the most exciting thing about the industry is growing
Oh,
together with the people you like.
Oh man, see you and like I was just talking about like Brunasso and Jake had like you guys have like these big broad visions, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I might be there. That's 4 months down the line. I can't plan that far ahead.
Oh.
But yeah, I was thinking actually, I was thinking it'd be cool to figure out like plan ahead and try to schedule like in-person ones for the first time with people there and just meet people because it is one of the things you talked about earlier was like you meet people for the first time, it's like I feel like I know you, and that happens to me all the time. And SolarCon, I don't know, it's a lot of stress though thinking about all the people that I'm gonna
You should put
meet.
like a little booth outside where you just do
No,
mini
no, no, no,
podcasts.
no, no.
That would be
Oh, mini
awesome. You could
podcast.
do mini like 5 minute interviews with random people that are
I
there
would
from
do
the
that, but I would
industry.
I would need Solar Joe to be having like his objection and like have people like step up, like not even like volunteer, like as people are walking in, he's like, okay, objection training. And he like puts a mic in their
No, it
face
could be
and
it
gets
could
it.
be like door pitches. It could be whatever people do.
Yeah.
It would be
No,
really cool to just learn and because it's about solar growth, your podcast. So that would how else do you grow than learning from some of the best people out there as well?
yeah. And recently I think solar growth it has kind of took on, I think what I've realized is not only helping people to grow their business and make the industry a better place, but like the industry itself can grow. I mean, there's a lot of the kind of culture and a lot of stuff we've talked about on this show or about on this interview where we talk about like things where companies are so focused on the short term, they're not focused on the long term. Solar isn't, it's like a wild west where a lot of the businesses that
Yeah.
are finding success right now aren't really run like businesses should be run. And hopefully the more that we kind of bring attention to it and help that so that we aren't worried about customers that are working with other companies, like that's the biggest thing I think I found is it sucks that solar has a bad reputation. um, but I also don't think that the reputation is going to get any better if we all just sit around and pretend like it's okay. So I think growing and promoting, like actually developing your skills and learning and marketing and selling yourself in a way that's you're able to promote your name. And like once I think that's the biggest thing I was talking with Kenny about was you like when you put your name on something, it you have to hold it to a higher standard. And I
Right.
think the more people that were able to like start putting our names on our companies and our brands and our business and the customers that we with, like when they remember you and your name, the way you behave and the way that you help them is much more important. And it's
Yep.
just something overall. I think we just need more people, and that's also why I started this, was just because there were so many people I didn't. I was gonna say there's so many people I didn't like in solar. There were so many people that there were so many people that were learning from people that I don't think they necessarily should have been learning from, and there still is. But I think putting a video in someone's face and or a camera in someone's video in someone's face, putting a camera in someone's face and talking to them, you're able to learn and kind of get a feel for people and see uh, what they're all about, and hopefully make decisions about who you work with and who you learn from, and all that kind of stuff. And so if there is anyone that's watching this video either now or 10 years from now, when we're about to head to SolarCon 10. SolarCon actually sounds kind of cool when you say it like that. SolarCon. When we're heading into SolarCon, like DEF CON. When we're heading to SolarCon 10, if there's anyone that's watching this that wanted to reach out to you, or maybe like ask you questions or learn from you or get involved and work with you in any sort of fashion, how would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Solar Lily on Facebook or Instagram, Solar by Lily, or my website. I'm pretty accessible. You just send me a DM, add me as a friend, or follow me, and then I'll help you out. I do it a lot, so I really don't mind.
That's yeah, I mean, I think that's common in solar is very few people mind. And it sounds like you're much better at replying than I am. Um, I used to get a lot more. Now I've gotten to the point where I can reply. But it's very cool that you're open. Obviously, you have a lot of experience. You're helping a lot of different people, and most importantly, I just like the way that you handle yourself and your business. Uh,
Thank you.
because you're out there and you're, like I said, putting your name on it, and that's very respectable in an industry where we could have more of that. So thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to doing this again sometime, and I will see you at SolarCon. When is it, by the way? I should
Awesome.
know this. When is it? In
It's
March?
April. No, I think
April?
it's April 21st through the 23rd, I believe.
Yes, I will most likely be there. Even though, so I am leaving, so I'm not going to be living in Utah. So it's like
Oh,
if it was right now, I could go. It's like an hour drive, but I'm going to have to fly in. So it'll be a little different, but I do intend to be there, and it will be fun to meet people and see people and uh, the good and the bad. If you guys are doing a solar comedy, you guys have to do a podcast or
we
something there.
might. I'll pitch it to Jake Hess. I'll be like, you want a comedy thing at it? It'll be, yeah, April 21st to the 23rd. So we still have time to come up with some stuff. But I think that's the next thing in the industry. That's the next, I always, one of the things I do is I always look at the future. Like, Facebook is already like, we got our audience. Now it's about TikTok, it's about Instagram Reels, it's about video, it's about interaction with the audience. So that is going to be the next way to build rapport, to build a following. And I think if we could teach it at SolarCon, why not?
Oh my! Have you ever been on TikTok? I mean, it sounds like you
I,
have. You've been on
I have,
TikTok?
but I don't really do it a lot. I have been on other people's. I have to start that myself.
I've never felt so old in my life
I know. I
until I
see
went
it
on
and I'm like,
TikTok. Uh,
but then I see older people doing it. Haven't you seen? And they're like,
Yeah, well, it's I don't know. I remember just the first time I got on there, and I think like before it knows what you like or whatever, and it was like, oh, it was just like a bunch of 12-year-old kids dancing. I was like, what the heck is this thing? And I remember like I was going through it, and I just, like I said, I never really felt like I'm old in my life until I went on TikTok that one day. And no, it's fun. I definitely think there's more content there, and It'll definitely be something. I think I read that they're like the most visited website in the world this last year or
Yeah, it's
something.
like the biggest new thing coming up. I've read that as well. And I mean, that's part of being in business is being ahead, knowing what the marketing trends are. And for a long time, it was Facebook, YouTube, and Google. And I think now it's moving more towards video and interaction and or
Mhm.
like this, like podcasts, webcasts, like things like that. So I can't
Yeah,
wait to,
the
I
I guess
hate
the
it.
challenge with solar is that I don't know I don't know if like 35, like 40, 50-year-old, I don't know if that's ever gonna be a point where the majority of like 40-year-olds are on TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think it's still viewed and it unless they are able to really like drastically kind of shift their
Well, the
perception.
thing with TikTok that I like is that you can video and do everything in TikTok and do the little like writing and all that, but then that same could be shared on Facebook and Instagram. So
Oh,
it serves multiple platforms with one video, if that makes sense. But so
yeah.
you're keeping up with the new and your audience might not be there. But I've sold deals through Snapchat, which I think is even weirder. Literally, I posted a little meme on Snapchat, and then my friend's like, "Oh, I'm gonna send you my bill, sent me the bill and got a deal for me." So I made money off memes,
I wish
off
you would have told me that.
Snapchat.
We could have had a full video about how you closed the deal on Snapchat.
Yep.
And
And it was the weirdest thing, or like even Facebook Messenger. They're just like, they'll literally reply to something with a copy of their bill. And then I'll be like, oh, when are you free? I've had one deal that I didn't even ever do a presentation. I literally sent them the thing, like what their bill would be after they signed docs and everything via Facebook Messenger. And it's installed.
I've
So
had I had one like that that was exact same. It was like no work at all. It was like, or you like, okay, yeah, like I talked to him for like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I'll be sending you one later tonight. And like I sent it to him before bed. And I'm like, I was planning on like calling him and walking him through. And like the next day I
and
wake up
it's
and it's like,
signed.
oh, the deal's signed. I was
Yep.
like, oh, well, that's cool.
Yep.
When the customer signs it and you find out from the customer, that's always like, oh yeah, hey, I signed it. It's like, oh, that's perfect.
Okay, let me look for it.
I thought you were long gone, but it's
Yep.
very cool. Well, I look forward to meeting you, and I look forward to having conversations like this again. I wish you the best of luck in everything that you have going on, because you are working on a lot, and I hope that you have
Thank
an
you. I
incredible
appreciate it.
2022, and we'll do this again soon.
Thanks, Kyle, for having me. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Kyle Thumb. Thank you so much for watching this solar growth clip from the Solar Growth Podcast and my interviews with solar professionals. I greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this, please like, comment, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate every new subscriber I get, and it helps me to create more content and grow myself in solar, as well as help as many solar professionals grow in solar as well, so that we can make this industry a much better industry that's going to have a much bigger impact. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again soon.